All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Non-Victim Nation podcast. And today I have my good friend Lee Moiseve
Yep.
back from San Diego
Yeah.
with Barely Training.
Yeah.
So
Both rocking it.
we're both showing our stuff today.
Yeah.
And you just happened to be in town and wanted to catch up a little bit and talk more about your business and what's
Yeah.
kind of going on.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
how you been?
Good, man. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me back, I guess, just today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's always fun to be out here.
Yeah, I'm always happy to talk to you like whenever you come into town. So,
Yeah. 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 And I mean, we have a pretty close-knit training family out here. So it's always good to see everyone, talk to everyone. And
right.
I know I'm in the group chat too. So
Yeah,
it's not like we're too far away.
yeah. So we at least get to keep in contact through
Right.
Signal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
So since the last time I talked to you, has the business like changed or grown a lot? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely taken off. Just classes and stuff are doing really well. It's hard. I always tell people it's hard because even though I'm an instructor, I'm really an online business
hmm
because people have to go to my website, buy my class, and then get a product later.
right.
So it's an online marketing hustle, right? So
hmm
I'm always trying to like post to Instagram, post to this, post to that, like hustle it. So that's where it's a little bit challenging
hmm
because everyone that comes to my class is like, this is amazing. I'm coming back. And then I get people that are on their fourth, fifth, sixth class, right? Because they
Right.
love my teaching style. They love what I do. They love how I teach. But to capture them on the internet in the
hmm
first place I've found the most challenging part of the whole business.
hmm
Teaching is easy. Like I love it. It's just simple. I know what I'm doing. I know how to talk to people. It's the like initial like spark on the internet to get them to be like, hey, just come on,
Right.
just buy the class. And then after that, once they take class, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like all my Yelp and Google reviews are through the roof, all 5-star. And
hmm
but I mean, screw Yelp. But anyways, I have like 25 5-star ratings and they'll only show like 10. It's just like stupid Yelp,
right.
a dying thing anyways. But anyways,
Yeah. I to this day I don't know anybody that really uses that. I mean, like if you have no idea what you're looking for and you want to do like a search,
yeah.
it can give you an idea. But I've never ever like looked at a restaurant and say I'm going to check Yelp first to
Yeah.
decide if I want to eat
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not a thing.
Yeah, and especially with Google, I mean, Google's taking over the world. We all
Yeah.
know that.
hmm
So now with Google reviews, it's like Yelp is more and more just going down the toilet. Like Google won't edit your reviews. They won't censor them. They won't like say, oh, I called and I was like, hey, I have like 10 to 12 5-star reviews. And they're like, well, they don't fit the profile of an active user. I go, what the hell does that mean? And they go, well, they're not like logging into their profile. They're not checking in places. They're not doing this and that. I go, but this one guy like uploaded a picture. He has like 15 reviews of places. And they're like, yeah, but it's probably been like over a year since he logged in. I go, what does that matter?
Yeah.
Who cares? It's still a legitimate review. It's
Right.
still, I know that guy was in my class. It's still a legitimate review. He left other reviews. I can see if you have a no picture, like generic name, Mr. Smith, and one review. I'm like, okay, that's probably someone faking it, right?
Yeah.
But this dude was like full on like normal profile, and they're like, yeah, but he doesn't fit the active profile or active member. I was like, this is so stupid.
hmm
So from like that minute on, I was like, I'm done. Yelp, you suck.
Yeah.
And then of course, Yelp like, oh well, if you pay to be an advertiser, we'll put those ones back out. I was like, okay, now I see.
hmm
So I just push Google reviews now, which is
There you go.
which is fine. But
So, do you have a place like on your website where they can like leave reviews there too?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I send an after action email after every class.
Oh, cool.
So I send a little bit of homework after the class is
Okay.
because I'll see the class and I'll find okay, this group of people needs to work on these three things, right?
hmm
So like I just sent one the other day and I was like, hey, you guys need to work on your draws just to be more seamless because they're doing is in the waistband
hmm
class. It was an EDC class. I was like, you guys need to work on your draws just to be more seamless, just to get them out faster.
hmm
Drawing from concealment, as we all know, it's not super easy. So there's
Right.
a lot to it, right? So
hmm
I was just like, just work on those draws at home. Easy, that's easy practice. But then I was like, okay, that class is one of my favorite to teach. It's super fun, and I'm actually going to put it on for the group chat.
Nice.
Um, it's EDC plus V, which is the vehicle aspect.
Okay.
Everyone carries a gun, but they get out of their car and they're like,
hmm
how do I like they don't comprehend like okay if I need to gauge someone from in the car or while getting out of the car, it's a completely different animal,
Right.
right? Most people that shoot CCW or EDC, they do it online, they stand online and they shoot target right in front of them. It's like, cool, that would work if your target or your bad guy walks up to you and says, "Hey, I'm a bad guy." And you're like,
Right.
cool, boom, boom, sub-second draw. But now you're getting out of the car and the dude's moving around the other side of the car and you need to engage him. Like,
Hmm.
and you do this every single day. You get in and out of your car.
Right.
So I was like, hey, you guys need to just focus because they all did good in the class.
Hmm.
But I was like, hey, just from now on, like, kind of put that mental thing in your head of like, I'm getting out of my car. What if that guy was there? How would I engage? Just don't pull it on or anything like that. Just be like, how would I maneuver around these people? What I have to engage inside of people? What if my wife is sitting in this seat and the guy's over there? I can't blow around past her face.
Right.
You know, she's gonna freak out and scream and move. And so I was
Yeah.
like, so a lot of it was like a mental shift. And they were like, man, there's a lot going on. It's like, yeah, no
Mhm.
kidding. That's why we're here training, right?
Right.
And they're like, whoa, this class is nuts. And I was like,
Mhm.
it's fun. But they were just like, man, so many gears are turning in this class. Like, I could see them all thinking and they're asking questions. They're asking the right questions. Like, well, what if I had to do this? I'm like, cool. Then you do this. And they're like, I'm like,
Right.
yeah, that's why we're here. Right? Just give it today. Tomorrow it's easy. So, but, so like I was saying, I send the homework in the email after action. I always find that groups like what they need to work on.
Hmm.
And underneath that, I just be like, hey, here's the class photo. I mail it to everybody afterwards. And then I say, if you want to use them, cool. Here's my review pages.
Right.
So I don't specifically like hand out a Yelp card or anything like
Hmm.
that. But just like, if you want to use them, here they are. Knock yourself out.
Right. So I think that that's an important aspect because people get really locked into that, just like you're saying. They practice doing something a certain way,
Yeah,
and they get really good at it, and then they feel comfortable. It's like, well, that isn't always going to be the case.
right.
You know,
100%.
it's like learning, just driving.
Yeah,
You learn with an instructor and you bring everything, and it's nice and safe. That's one thing.
yeah.
You got to with a bunch of other people that know how to
It's
drive.
totally
That's a
different.
whole other thing. It's
Yeah.
like you have to be able to, adapt to whatever situation and
Uh-huh.
still be as efficient as you were when you were like 100% like in your own space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My mom used to always tell me when I was a young driver, it's like, I'm not worried about you. You're a good driver. I'm worried about everybody else.
Yeah.
Like the interaction with you, like people paying attention.
Hmm.
Cell phones weren't as prevalent back then, they didn't have like screens and stuff. They were like, you know, make calls as it
Right.
so, so people weren't as distracted, but it was like, you used to have truckers down in their coffee, swerving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you'd always be like, yeah, it's other people out there that are crazy.
Right. So, like, I used to ride a motorcycle uh, in my 20s, like when I was a lot younger, and back then they didn't have cell phones yet.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, people would do stupid shit. They'd like drive into the lane with you just because they don't bother to look, or because you're so much smaller, they don't see
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So I can only imagine the level of distraction I have now
I
on
know.
being in that environment. It's like
Yeah,
that's kind of scary.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Crazy. So it's just I tell them, and it was funny in that class. We do a modified tooler drill. Uh,
okay.
the 20-foot knife and times it takes to close the distance.
Right.
And so I'll talk to the shooter, and I will give the runner a thumbs up to
Hmm.
tell him like, okay, I'm ready. But I'll start talking to the shooter,
Hmm.
and like, dude, those are bad shoes. Where did you get them? And I'd hit the timer, but they didn't know that, so the beep goes off, and they're trying to think of like, where did I get these shoes? Oh, beep! Oh, so yeah, it's fun because some of them do get distracted and they're like, oh, Jesus, I can shoot it. So it's fun to just kind of like play with their minds just a little bit. And I go, okay, in real life, are you going to be standing there talking to someone about your shoes and a timer's going to go off and you're going to pull? No, you're going to have to visually acquire that person
Right.
and what they're doing and react to that. So you're even more behind the eight ball
Hmm.
because that person already made a decision to attack you from
Hmm.
whatever distance they're at, and now you're reacting to the visual stimulus of them doing that,
Hmm.
and you need to react. I go, the timer, you were waiting for the timer. I told you the timer is going to go off,
Hmm.
right? And I tried to distract you a little bit, and you were distracted.
Hmm.
Think about now, I have to be talking to you, see it out of the corner of my eye, and react to it that way.
Right.
And they're like, yo. I'm like, yep.
Right.
So I mean, I love the fact that everybody has CCWs, but
Hmm.
I think people need to take it past the training of like, oh, I just got a CCW,
Right.
and that's
Well,
that classes.
that's one of those things that I've said multiple times on the podcast here. It's like people get it in their head. It's like, okay, I need a gun. So buy a gun,
Mhm.
and whether they get CCW or not, it's like they have it and they feel like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
But it's like you don't know how to use the gun,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
then
yeah,
that's not really helping you.
yep,
It's like saying, I have like storage food, food
Mhm,
storage or whatever, right? And it's
mhm.
like that's not the end solution for whatever can go wrong. That's only one piece of it. You need to
Right.
kind of like
Yeah, yeah.
make sure you're actually prepared to do what you need to do.
Yeah. I
So,
always tell people like if you, like new shooters, right? Like
mhm,
if you and I go buy a new gun, it's like okay, it's another drip in the bucket.
mhm,
Cool. I'm already good at handguns just because I got a new one doesn't mean I go train on that handgun.
right.
But for new shooters, like if you pick up a new platform, you buy the gun, you buy ammo, and then you train.
Hmm.
That's where your money should go. Buy
Right.
gun, buy ammo, train. That's it. And then when you're proficient with that, cool, maybe you jump to a new platform or you get a second version of that platform or something like that.
Hmm.
But so many people are like, and I'm not knocking it. There definitely are gun enthusiasts that just like to collect and go to the indoor range and stand in the lane and go bang.
Right.
Cool, I get it.
Yeah.
There's people that like to run competition, and
Right.
spray all these boards, but there's that people that kind of realize that there's a calm mindset to it,
Hmm.
and it's where my world exists. So I try and tell people like training is so paramount because, like I said, I put in that EDC class, put everybody in chairs, and I go, hey, how many of you have shot from sitting? And I look around. How many of you are nervous about shooting from sitting? Everyone's hand goes up.
Right.
And I'm like, that's what I thought
Yeah.
because you can't do it in the indoor range.
Right.
Even if you go to an outdoor range and you start setting up a chair, they're like, whoa, 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 what's going on here, bro? Like, what are
Right.
you doing? So it is all of them like, whoa, this is weird. Like, and I was like, try, and they would all do this to draw, to get that straight line. And I'm like, try to not do that. See if you can
Right.
just draw from your sitting position because, let's say you're at a restaurant on the table and you're all over, knock over your so it's a lot of guys that just like the mental, like, whoa, I've never done this before. Do it 4 or 5 times and they just get more comfortable with it and just building steps of the class. And now it's like
Right.
they draw and shoot to the side. Now and draw, shoot to this side.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things where it's like they, they've never done it, so they're afraid of it. But
Right.
once you add a little bit to it, they're like, oh, this is right. Like, it's a real world.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
they go on record and say there's another company is telling you my class is dangerous. And I was like, no,
Really.
my class is real, bro. Like, yeah. I tell people like, hey, guess what? If you draw from concealed and you're sitting, are you gonna sweep your leg? Most likely.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Hmm.
Reality, right?
Right.
I'm not gonna draw like this. To shoot there, right? I'm gonna go, whoa!
Yeah.
I go, are you gonna sweep your leg? And they're like, yes. I'm like,
Yeah.
welcome to life, you know.
Right.
But I've already got them to that position in the training where I don't think they're gonna fire around in their legs. I'm watching. We've already done a bunch of shooting by this point.
Right.
So that's yeah. I have people in my class they'll sit in a chair and they'll jump on the ground and shoot underneath the table. And I go, do you think that could happen in real life? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And it's like,
Hmm.
why not practice that?
Right.
You know, why be surprised when it happens in your life and be uncomfortable when you can do it today and figure it out? And then so that when it does need to happen in real life, you're like, I already done this. Easy. You know.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting. Like I just love teaching that stuff. Where
Hmm.
I try and interject as much reality into it as possible,
Hmm.
and it's worded weird on my website for that reason. It's like I try and take your life and interject shooting. You
Okay.
know, like I try and take what your daily life looks like and put shooting in certain aspects of that.
Hmm.
Like I said, getting in and out of the car from inside the car. A lot of people wouldn't know how to react to that situation
Right.
because they've never done that before.
Yeah.
Especially tons and tons of CCW folks, they literally just shot at a squared off paper target directly in front of them.
Hmm.
So I like to interject the life, but then take the shooting and blend it. So it's fun. I love it.
Right. That's really cool.
And the people in the classes are like, whoa. And
Yeah.
I go, level 2, bro, your brain explodes. Because then I call it the trunk gun class and we take rifles and we throw them in the trunk of the car.
Hmm.
So it's like now you got to engage with your CCW gun, put that away, get your rifle up, get it loaded, and then engage again. And they're
Right.
just like, so many moving parts. And I'm like, yeah, now we're going to add a second person. And they're like, what? And by the end of the day, I have 4 people jumping out of the car, all engaging with pistols and immediately switching to rifles, engaging with rifles, and then
Hmm.
moving off the X.
Right.
And they're like, there's so many moving parts. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
this is life. this is 100% life.
Yeah.
So,
So there's a couple of different aspects to what you're talking about there. So like one is your sidearm is really only to like get you to the point where you can get to a
mhm,
better to improve your fighting position, right?
right, absolutely.
So you're gonna like use the sidearm to get to the rifle because that's a better,
Right, better
you know.
platform.
So
100%. Yeah,
and then so yeah, like kind of that mindset of like you're this is the stepping stone to get to this.
yeah,
And no matter what, you're always trying to improve your fighting position.
mhm,
So whether that's your actual position in space and time,
yep,
the tools that you're using, whatever that has to be to get you to your
yeah.
goal.
Yeah, and I've had some military dudes in my class, and they're like, "Oh, well, we're taught like not to exit the vehicle." I was like, "Yeah, because they're armored."
Right.
You know, and your Honda Civic is not.
Yeah. Right.
Get out there because that
Yeah.
thing is a bullet magnet.
Mhm.
I was like, "Yeah, so you're gonna have to get your." And it's weird because I flipped the roles because now your CCW gun's your primary because that's what's
Mhm.
on you.
Mhm.
That's your initial reaction gun, and you got to get to your secondary, which is the bigger, better gun. So I was like, I kind of reversed the whole role of like, okay, if we're in the military, you don't want to exit the vehicle because you're armored, and your primary is your long gun, and your pistol is your secondary. But
Mhm.
it's the opposite in the civilian world because
Mhm.
my primary is the first one I can get to, and
Yeah.
that's my CW gun. And you know, depending on if you have a shield, you get 7 rounds to solve that problem.
Right.
You get into the like the macros or the higher end Glocks, you got 15 to 16, 17 rounds, but it's just
Mhm.
like I don't daily carry extra mags on me. I
Mhm.
may have just the 15 in that gun and that's it. And I got to
Right.
make that 15 work to get to my trunk gun and go from there. So it's a whole nother ballgame. And people are just like, I had one guy in the class the other day. He was like, dude, I'm taking this one again. Like, I'm just barely understanding what's happening. And
Uh,
that's because you're saying, hey, move over here. Hey, go over there. Hey,
right.
grab that.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's a lot of fun. I love it. It's just,
Mhm.
making people think about what they're doing and interjecting the life into the shooting. It's
Right.
super fun.
So that's another thing that I don't think people also kind of take into consideration. It's like you can go through a class like that and you get the information, but that doesn't mean you learned the information.
Hmm.
It means you heard it. That doesn't mean you know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because without some sort of repetition to
Hmm.
kind of like make it a reflexive sort of thing, or where you stop thinking about it, it's like tying your shoe.
Yeah.
You get to a point where you just do it without thinking about it. You
Yep.
you kind of got to get to that same level if you're going to be proficient.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and that's I bring that up all the time. In my rifle level 2 class, I have dudes transition from shoulder to shoulder, right?
Hmm.
And I'm just like, okay, you see the drill where they rifle up and they go between the barrels. I go, I want you to do something different. I want you to transition to shoulder to shoulder. So if you come out on the right side, you're shooting off your right shoulder. If you come out the left side, you're shooting off your left shoulder.
Hmm.
And it's surprising how few people know how to transition
Hmm.
and how to like how do I do this?
Right.
And I was like, you need to be able to do that.
Hmm.
I go, if you get into any kind of next level steps, like a CQB environment, if you watch me running CQB, I don't think about the gun going, oh, I should shoot over there. It just all of a sudden it's in this hand and I'm peering around that corner, you
Hmm.
know? So it's like, you need to be able to understand that I don't think about that anymore. It just
Hmm.
happens because of my training levels,
Right.
and so I was telling people like when it gets to a certain point, I don't think about what I'm doing. I'm
Hmm.
just doing it.
Right.
I tell people that's how you get into a fast draw too.
Hmm.
I don't think, okay, hand goes on handgun, hey, run me through the 5 steps of a perfect draw, and bang.
Hmm.
I go, and then all of a sudden the gun's in front of my eyeballs, and I'm like, oh, cool, boom. And
Right.
and I'm like, you just have to understand, like, once you get good at something,
Hmm.
and your mechanics and your body mechanics are there and your fundamentals are there, you don't think about doing that thing anymore. You
Hmm.
go, that's my target, and your eyes never leave the target, but all of a sudden your sights are on that target and you pull the trigger.
Right.
And I was like, that's how you get fast at something. You just get fundamentally good at it,
Right.
and they just build up from there.
So I believe the term is unconsciously competent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I do some crazy stuff in my classes. I've had guys, from the 3 yard line, I had a 2 inch circle, and I
Hmm.
had them aim at that, close their eyes, draw, and fire. And I was like, trust me, if your fundamentals are set, you'll be pretty dang close.
Hmm.
In my pistol 2 class. And one guy, I didn't even have to demonstrate the drill. I call him Jedi now. The dude put five draws with his eyes closed, put all 5 rounds in that 2 inch circle. I was
Oh,
like, see, I told you it's possible. I
right.
told you. I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't even have to demo it. This is proof. Like, if I would have done it, I have dark sunglasses. You guys might think I was tricking you, right? I'm cheating.
Right.
I'm like, this dude over here just did it and proved to you that if you set your fundamentals, the gun will be there and you just pull the trigger.
Right.
That's it.
So there's a scientific term for that. It's proprioception, I think is how
Hmm.
you say it. It's sort of the same idea that like if you put a pencil down and then you close your eyes, you can just reach out and pick it up because
Hmm.
you know space and time,
Yep.
you're aware of where it is,
Exactly.
right? It's the same idea. So like when you're doing that, you get situated so that you just know where you're
Hmm.
supposed to be, and then that happens.
Yeah, and if your fundamentals are set, like your stance, your grip, your just the way you shoot is
Hmm.
perfect every time, I know that if I look at that little spot on the brick and my gun comes up, it's going to be right there. So if
Hmm.
I close my eyes, it would be right there, you know?
Hmm.
So once you set those fundamentally, built system,
Hmm.
you can just go on it.
Right.
And all of them were like, "Whoa." I was like, "So, okay, no one was more than that far off of their 2-inch circle with their
Okay.
eyes closed." Okay, so
Right.
everyone did really well. And I said, "What does that tell you guys?" And
Hmm.
they're like, "Well, I don't know. I can shoot with my eyes closed." I go, "No." I go, I go, "It means your body knows what it's doing.
Right.
So let go. Stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Just do it."
Hmm.
And so immediately after that drill, I went into speed drills.
Hmm.
And I was like, "Your body knows what it's doing. Let go.
Hmm.
Let it go and just push your speeds." And all of them shot the fastest they've ever shot in their entire lives. They
Right.
all of them got the fastest draws they've ever got in their entire
Hmm.
lives after right back up to that, because now it gave them the confidence of like, I know what I'm doing, right? My
Yeah.
body knows what it's doing. My hands know what they're doing.
Hmm.
I have good grip. I can fire this gun. Now just do it.
Right.
And then all of them got the fastest times. And I in class when I time draws, I bring a Sharpie and I write your time down on your hand. And I said, memorize that because next time I see you, your time better be lower.
Right.
And they're like, oh, okay, cool. So
Nice.
that's the way I push people,
Uh-huh.
but it's fun. It's a lot of
Right.
fun.
I think that's another important aspect of the training that you're doing is that you actually are pushing them. It's not
Hmm.
just show up and you did it or you didn't, you
Yeah.
know. It's like keep progressing, keep
Yep.
getting better.
Yep.
Because if you're not, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always tell people taking my classes like drinking from a fire hose. Like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna earn your money. I'm gonna teach you as much as I possibly can today,
Right.
right? But it's like drinking from a fire hose. So
Hmm.
if you just want a little sip, probably in the wrong spot.
Right.
I'm gonna jam so much information into you today
Hmm.
that you're gonna go home, and that's where the after action email is gonna come in because I'm gonna be like, hey, remember we talked about this? Remember we talked about this? Remember we talked about this?
Hmm.
Implement those now.
Right.
So I'll teach someone something. I'll let them do it 4 or 5 times, and then we move to the next thing. But the next thing is a compound of that thing. So my classes are all building blocks, right?
Hmm.
So if my class, especially the EDC class, if I the first thing of the day I said, okay, with your concealed carry gun, jump out of this car, engage that dude, they'd be like, I don't know how to do this, right? But you build them
Right.
up throughout the day,
Hmm.
and by the time at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, jump out of the car, engage that guy. They're like, all right, got it, because
Hmm.
we've built so many blocks up
Right.
to get there that they're like comfortable at that point,
Hmm.
you know. So I love all my classes. I start with huge platform and be like, all right, let's just establish shooting. Let's
Hmm.
establish our triggers. Let's establish our guns, right? And then you move into accuracy, because
Hmm.
if you don't have accuracy, who cares if you have speed,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's irrelevant.
Hmm.
And then you move into speed because you know your accuracy is there. Now you can push faster.
Hmm.
And then you move into critical decision making and movement.
Right.
And so I try and structure all classes in that
Hmm.
in that fundamental way,
Right.
and it just helps people do really well with those building blocks.
Hmm.
And I always tell them like, what's more important, accuracy or speed? And I'm always waiting because someone will pick one inevitably. And I'm like, nope. I go both,
Both.
because if you
Yeah.
don't have one, the other's useless.
Hmm.
If you can be the fastest guy on the whole line, your draw's a point 0.4, but you're missing 6 feet to the right, useless.
Yeah.
If you can put it right in the E in this logo, but it takes you 45 minutes, useless. Right. So I'm like, you have to have
Right.
both to
Yeah.
be effective.
Hmm.
And they'll be like, oh, wow, So
Yeah.
it's
If it
fun.
takes you 2 minutes to find the target, it's like you're
Yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that dude smoked you
Yeah.
already. Like,
Right.
yeah, it's cool. I'll pick up your gun later.
Right.
So yeah.
Um, so I know that like you've seen the class that Josh does for Guardian with the simulator.
Hmm.
I still think that is one of the greatest tools ever.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I really want to like do some more of that with him.
yeah.
But it's kind of funny because you'll watch people like kind of go through those things and the reaction times and things like this. And the wonderful thing about that is it actually shows you like where you shot,
Mhm.
like you
Mhm.
totally missed this guy,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. And so you're getting that live feedback of like you drew really fast but you missed, or
Yep. Yep.
you shot really well but it took you too long and that guy shot you,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
I remember the first simulator I ever did was in the police academy. This was way back when.
uh
And SDPD's policy is not to shoot at moving cars, which it's a good policy, right?
right,
You don't shoot at moving cars. And my scenario, I was all excited to run a scenario. I was like, I want to shoot that thing. It's gonna be fun. And I was all excited. And my scenario was a car. I was like, crap. And then I was like, boom, 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 boom. And they're like, you know what the policy is? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, why'd you shoot? I was like, I just wanted to try it. Yeah. I wanted to shoot the gun because it was like a laser gun. I was like, I
right,
just wanted to try it. Everyone else got to shoot it. I knew the policy, but I still just wanted to try it. And they're like,
right.
I was like, it's a laser gun, man. Like,
Yeah,
should let
huh,
everyone try it first, and then I wouldn't have shot at the car. But
right.
yeah, but the thing I missed because to hit a moving car,
Hmm.
trying to hit a driver of a moving car with a handgun. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Good luck. But I knew I missed, but I was like, I just want to try it. But to your point, like, yeah, if someone would be like, oh, that was super fast, I'm like, yeah, but you're this far off of the target.
yeah.
So yeah, the simulators are a fantastic tool, and not only
Hmm.
that, but the critical decision making
Hmm.
of like, why did you shoot that guy?
Correct.
Tell me why you shot that guy.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh well, because I saw that, and I go, or Josh would be like, that's a shovel. you know,
yeah.
oh, I thought it was an AK. I was like, well, maybe someday it will be an AK, but
Right.
not today.
That's it. Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I got to get Josh. Josh, if you're watching this, you need to come back to the show real quick. Um, so kind of wanted to change gears a little bit and talk uh more about kind of like politics and things that are going
Mhm.
on. There's always like this tremendous push, like especially in California and New York, to like get rid of all guns and things like that.
Yeah.
So, like, how much is that impacting your business and just
Oh,
things in
massively,
general? You know,
massively. Yeah. I don't know if you heard, but California just put in an 11% tax on guns and ammo. Like
I hadn't heard that yet.
like 11% over the 8%. Like you have the 8% sales tax, and now you have an extra 11% that's just on guns and ammo.
Right.
So you're paying almost damn near 20% on guns and ammo in tax, which is a lot. You buy a $1,500 gun, that's a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like that, like right before that went into effect, a bunch of people stocked up on ammo, and
Hmm.
I imagine I don't, I didn't track gun sales, but I'm sure they went through the roof right
Oh yeah.
before that too. But so like California is constantly trying to put the gun industry out of business.
Hmm.
If it's just people just don't like guns out there. One of my old businesses, Gunfighter Tactical, we basically got put out of business because the landowner said, the strip mall that we were in, he said straight up, I don't want a gun store here anymore. And we're like,
Okay.
okay. So he's like, you can stay, but you have to pay double. I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, I
Right.
can't do double. Like, if you're gonna do like 15% or whatever, cool. But his politics were like, no.
Hmm.
And then that place sat vacant, and then it got an airsoft shop in it. So he was okay with fake guns, just not real guns. And
Okay.
so we're just like, oh, okay, dude, like whatever. But yeah, so that was a personal politics in California, direct result in our business having to shift and change and modify
Hmm.
and eventually being shut down because of the climate in California.
Right.
But yeah, politics in California are just super anti-gun, super.
So this is something that I still don't understand. I mean, and I get it from the politicians' point of view because they're trying to make everybody dependent on the government so that they have more
Hmm.
power and whatever, and that's all they really care about. They don't care
Yeah,
about public safety.
yeah.
Um, but from a citizen's perspective, it's like if you live in a place where hey, they don't punish people for committing crimes,
Hmm.
you know, you would think that it would be in their best interest to like want to like have firearms and know how to use them to
Yeah.
defend themselves. When people will just walk up and carjack you or rob you,
Hmm.
like no matter what you're doing or where you're at,
Hmm.
you're so susceptible to being attacked
Yeah.
in an environment like that. So why, I guess I don't understand why more people don't want to have that.
Well, in the political side of it is just that you're thinking way too practical.
Hmm.
They see it as my party's agenda is to abolish guns, so
Hmm.
I'm going to do everything I can to do that. Not,
Yeah.
oh, like I should help people protect themselves.
Right.
It's like, no, I can put that feather in my cap that I got this extra 11% tax on guns and ammo,
Hmm.
a sin tax, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so that's all they see it as. They don't see it as
Right.
like, oh, my single mom who lives by herself wanted to get a gun and ammo.
Yeah.
They see it as like, who cares? It's not my problem.
Well, the people that are voting for all of these things, if they just never had, or they live in such a safe area that they feel like it just isn't necessary,
Yeah, that's
you know,
that's the question. I mean,
you know.
who is even voting these days is the question. But um, yeah, I honestly don't know. I
Hmm.
I could I don't know how these things get passed, but in states like California, they just do.
Hmm.
I guess there's more in the liberal Sacramento, San Francisco, LA that
Hmm.
can make rules for thee, and just,
Right.
it is what it is. Like, I mean, all the celebrities in LA, they don't care if they have guns or not because they're surrounded by guys
Right.
with guns.
Yeah.
So they're like, I'm fine.
Right.
Well, I'm not. I
Yeah.
can't pay for those guys to walk around with me and protect me.
Right.
So I think it's just that, especially in California, those three cities in general
Hmm.
have so much of the pull in the state, they could just write their own
Right.
tickets.
Yeah.
Nothing ever really gets changed out there, especially with our terrible governor.
Right. So it's one of the great hypocrisies, especially in Hollywood. They love to make movies all about guns and violence and things
Yep.
like that. But then like out of the other side of their mouth, they're like telling you how horrible it is and like nobody should have
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
It's like that is so hypocritical. It's
100%.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
making billions of dollars off of this industry, and yet you don't want the industry to exist. It's
Yeah.
like those two things don't coincide.
Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know.
It's crazy. There's, I can't remember who it was, but it was one actor that, like, immediately following his action movie,
Hmm.
he came out and said no guns. And then I was like, what the hell? Like, your studio was probably like, you idiot. Like, you just bombed that movie,
Right.
like, that's what people are going to see you as.
Uh,
Several years ago, but I can't remember what it was.
Trying to remember the movie The Accountant,
Hmm.
Ben Affleck.
Hmm.
Great fucking movie. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Cool movie.
But he is totally against guns. It's like,
Yeah,
then why are you making the movie?
yeah. Why are you playing an assassin,
Right.
but you hate guns? Oh,
Right.
money.
Money.
That's why.
Right. So it's okay for you to benefit from it, but you don't want anybody else to actually
Yeah,
have it.
yeah,
It's so stupid,
yeah. I
you
agree.
know.
I totally agree.
And I mean, I've held this opinion for a long time that in California, people just have this, and not everybody, but the whole place is made up to not exist in reality.
Hmm.
you know the whole idea of Hollywood of coming there and becoming a star and whatever. It's like people
Yeah,
go there to escape from wherever they came from,
yeah, yeah,
with these grand illusions of what they're going to become,
yeah,
and they don't quite live in reality. So
yeah,
they're just that's why they allow, or at least that's how I think, but they just allow these things to kind of go on because somehow they feel like they're separated from it,
yeah, yeah.
that they're not part of the regular world, so they don't have to live in the rules or the consequences of those rules.
Right. And it's like you go to LA and it's probably, well, caveat on that in a second. But you go to LA and it's probably the dirtiest, most homeless filled city in probably California. It's
Hmm.
disgusting. But they're like, meh, the Hollywood elite don't live in that. The
Right.
Hollywood elite take the limo into the studio, don't have to deal with any of that.
Hmm.
So who cares, right? It's not
Right.
not their problem. And another thing in LA, like every waitress in LA has a interview for a movie or a show coming up in two
Hmm.
days.
Right.
They're always reading scripts and stuff like that. It's like the cliche Hollywood thing is like, oh, I went to LA to be an actress and now I'm waiting tables. Like,
Hmm.
well, yeah. I mean, that's not how that works. I mean,
Right.
sometimes it does, but sometimes people get struck by lightning too. So,
Yeah.
sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
Hmm.
But I actually saw something about LA because the Olympics are coming there in a couple of
Okay.
years. And so they're like actually making an effort to clean up the city now
Uh-huh.
just because the Olympics are coming.
Is that like when China came to visit, they cleaned it up
Yep.
until they left and let it go right back to shit again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
And the question is like, where'd all those people go?
yeah.
Like, where did they go? They give
Yeah.
them like $10. Okay, go somewhere else. Go
Right.
somewhere else. Go somewhere else. So it's an interesting. I mean, LA's been a shithole for forever, but
Right. And I mean, when it comes to like the actors and people like that that are speaking out in politics, fucking what's his name? uh, The Godfather, um, Robert De Niro.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Coming out and talking all his bullshit about,
Yep.
everything.
Yeah.
It's like you are so disconnected from reality, and
Hmm.
I believe that applies to most of the people in Hollywood. It's you are
Yeah.
so disconnected from reality and what the rest of the world actually is dealing with
Yep.
that of course you have that opinion. It's like,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
about you go be a normal fucking person for a while or just shut up,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's, I heard Oprah say something the other day about like, taxes and something. I'm like, lady, you are like the richest lady on the planet.
Yeah,
Like, shut up. You don't
right.
deal with taxes like us do.
Hmm.
You have people that you pay that deal with that. Like you probably never wrote a tax check in your life.
Hmm.
You have people that just you have probably have a team that takes care of your finances.
Right.
You don't know what you're talking about,
Hmm.
and I was just like, dude, just come to our level for like a day.
Yeah. So those kind of people that like will say things like that and hope that people don't catch on.
Yeah.
So Michelle Obama during the DNC was talking about her father and how he,
Yeah, yeah.
he was, grew up in poverty and whatever, and always believed that, or that he didn't quite trust people that took more than like their
Yeah,
what they
yeah.
needed. It's like,
Yeah.
bitch, you have three $10 million homes.
Yep. Yep.
You are a multi-millionaire.
Mhm.
And Oprah is talking, about whatever
Yeah.
too. She's a billionaire. It's like,
Yeah.
and you're talking about don't trust the rich.
Yeah.
You are the
Are the
rich.
rich.
It's
Yeah.
like, do you think people don't know that?
Yeah.
Or that they just, that somehow you're on their side?
Yeah.
You're not.
I've always been a fan, and speaking of just like the Hollywood thing in general, I've always been a fan of actors that like disappear when they're not in a movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what your personal opinions are.
Right.
I don't give two shits.
Hmm.
Like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
don't talk to me about it.
Right.
You have your opinion. I have my opinion. We can both vote. I don't
Hmm.
care.
Right.
Like, and I've always respected those actors the most that just like they have their beliefs. And if someone comes out and says, oh, did you know blah, blah, blah believes this? And it's like, okay, well, they weren't out on a soapbox trying to leave a press conference like De Niro.
Right.
He has a press conference to give you his opinion on politics. Like, I don't give two shits, man. Make
Right.
another movie. Like, shut
Yeah.
up. Like, and then not only that, but you're going to dissuade one side or the other. And
Hmm.
now you're actually affecting your bottom line because you're going to be like, oh, that guy's an idiot. I don't really want to see another De Niro movie.
Right.
Like I've always been a fan of like,
Hmm.
dude, just do your job and shut up.
Right.
That's it. But I'm a fan of that in every job.
Yeah.
Honestly, like if I roll through Canes to get some chicken, I don't want to care about your politics. I don't care.
Hmm.
Give me my freaking chicken. That's it. That's your job. Shut up. you
Yeah.
know. So I've always been a fan of just like just do your job.
Right.
Like I don't care.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with nothing.
Right. Well, it's the same thing as somebody who's going to tell you about your job or your industry that has never had that job or industry before or
Yeah.
has no actual experience.
Yep.
It's like, no, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So shut up,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I hate to keep bringing this back around, but like at DOC, we have a director who doesn't have any practical experience working in high
Yep.
level detention facilities.
Yeah.
And yet he's trying to make rules for them,
Yep.
which has caused an increase in staff assaults, in other people being harmed, raped, etc. You know, just in general, making the entire organization worse
Yeah.
and is bringing the morale of the entire department down to such a level that people that were pretty happy like being there of like now they just want to quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
People that had stuck around for X amount of time just so they could get to the retirement are thinking, do I really want to stay here any longer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
I'm this
Yeah.
close, it's like
Yeah.
that's saying a lot,
Yeah, absolutely.
you
And
know?
that I mean that's the kind of the old saying boots on the ground know what's going on,
Yeah,
right? You've had that in the military forever where some guy in an office somewhere is making decisions for guys who are on the ground. They're like, "What? That like I was busy doing my job and now all of a sudden you're hitting me with this that has nothing to do with nothing, but I got to do it now because you said so."
right.
And that's been a long standing tradition of people getting these positions of power that have like really shouldn't be there. They didn't
Hmm.
rise through the ranks. They just kind of got put there.
Right.
And they're like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Hmm.
I had a first sergeant in the military who was like that. He just kind of, he was one of those dudes that like just was like a school junkie.
Hmm.
He had a bunch of certificates saying how cool he was. But then I had a lieutenant who was a Mustang. So he was an enlisted and went in, officer.
Okay.
And the lieutenant was the coolest dude ever because he's like, dude, I was there. I was an NCO for a long time. I'm with you, and he was the coolest dude ever. And then the first sergeant was just freaking certificate junkie, and like
Hmm.
nobody trusted him. No one's like, dude, you just been doing schooling your entire career. You know, you were
Right.
never actually out doing stuff with us.
Hmm.
But the lieutenant who was boots on the ground for a long time, and then just made a career choice and
Right.
went officer. But he was cool. He's like, yeah, you know, I was
Yeah.
kind of his answer is like, I
Right.
know, I get it, dude. I know we shouldn't have to do this, but it's the way that
Hmm.
they're saying it. So it's like, all right, dude. But he was at least cool about it. He's like,
Right.
look, I'm here with you. It sucks. It's stupid. It's dumb, but we got to do it.
Right.
And then you're like, okay. So then I kind of respected him for that. And he's like, yeah, you got to follow the same rules I do. We still got to do it.
Hmm.
But yes, it sucks.
Right.
But then you get the first sergeant who came in and is like, do these rules and do it this way and do it that way. And you're like, shut up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I know that like Jocko talks like in his podcast about being able to like to lead up the chain of command.
Mhm,
So kind of like you do your job and you kind of like you play the game long enough that you build the credibility that you need to like work with your senior officers,
mhm.
right? And hopefully kind of like be able to say, hey, maybe we should do it this way, and
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and kind of like work that back up the chain of command. And I understand that that's a thing, you know, but on some levels, it's like I think that we've gotten so far off the mark that it's like I'm not even sure how that would work anymore, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, 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 and because now they'll punish you for it.
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, so you're going against what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Let me knock you down," Not
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we do it this way?" The idea train has left, and they're just like, "No, you do it my way,
Hmm.
or you're insubordinate, and I'm gonna punish you for it,"
Right.
which sucks, and that happens a lot in law enforcement. I was kinda telling Josh just the other day, I was like, dude, I hated it in law enforcement. I
Hmm.
hated it because the politics are so rough. Like you have people that went into that job not to be a beat cop, not to be this or that, but like to be a politician within the department. And I
Yeah.
hated it. Like I was like, dude, just because you've been here longer than me doesn't mean you know how to do it better than me
Right.
because you've never actually done it. You're just telling me how to do it.
Hmm.
And so I had a real big problem with that in the military and law enforcement. It's just like,
Right.
just because you say do it away doesn't mean it actually works that way.
Right.
You obviously clearly have not tried it, and that's why you're telling me to do it that other way.
Right.
So
Yeah. That's like somebody who studies how to like to fly a plane but has never actually flown one. It's
yeah,
like
and then
I
they
could,
tell you, and then they come in and tell a pilot how to do it, and you're like, what?
yeah.
I know what I'm doing. Shut up. Go away.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
you can read the manuals all fucking day. That's not going to tell you everything that you need to know.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
there's real world experience that has to be applied here at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
It's like, IKEA furniture, you can read the manual all day, but we all know at the end of the day, you end up with extra parts and you're looking at it and you're like, well, here we go.
right.
So yeah, it's the same thing. The manual says one thing, but the real experience is like, I'm just kind of winging it. Like I
Hmm.
kind of know this said goes, this goes there, but I
Hmm.
have these parts, I have
Yeah.
same kind of thing, figuring it out on the ground.
Right.
But yeah, it's fun.
Um, so like with your training and things like that, do you have, I mean, you get good feedback from the people that do
Mhm.
this stuff. Have you ever gotten any feedback of they've actually had to apply any of this to like real life or?
No, I mean, thank goodness that I haven't yet because, that would mean someone was in a critical incident, and
Right.
so luckily I haven't had anything yet
Hmm.
bounce back to. But I have had people go, "Hey, that thing you taught me back then. I've applied it now, and this is the way I do things in life."
Hmm.
I when I get out of the car, I don't carry groceries in my gun hand anymore.
Right.
That's a very common us as dudes. We're like, I'm gonna carry all the groceries at once, and you're just like 15 bags. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so they're like, yeah, I make like 3 trips, but I only carry them in my
Right.
gun hand or something like
Yeah.
that. So there's been times where I've just little gems. I've been like, hey, try
Hmm.
this, and they're like, oh wow, get an email 2 weeks later. Oh, that was super helpful, man. I've
Right.
been trying that, and it actually works really well.
Yeah.
So luckily, like I said, none of the critical incident stuff has come to play, but I think just the little sparks that I see throughout the day of like, especially like simple stuff where I tell people like, hey, you're going in that tactical turtle stance. Everyone did it back in the day. They came down and did this.
Right.
I go, if you keep your head and neck straight and you bring the gun up to your eyes, Now you're only moving one thing to meet another instead of trying to match two things moving in space.
Right.
They go, trust me, it's going to be faster.
Uh-huh.
And second, you're just going to avoid a lot of neck problems and scrunching, and you're just going to be able to, like, the more you relax your body throughout the day, the longer you can last,
Mhm.
right? And so they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is hard," and I'm like, "Yeah, but just trust me." And by the end of the day, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's so much better." It's
Mhm.
like I can get the gun faster with my eyes, and I was like, "Yeah, because you're not trying to do this with two things. You're
Mhm.
just doing this. You're moving one thing up to the other level."
Yeah.
And so stuff like that is like is cool because I'll just be like, "Hey, the way you're doing it's working. And it's not
Mhm.
wrong.
Right.
But if you just try this little tiny adjustment, it might be a little bit better."
Right.
And so I've got a lot of like, "Oh yeah, that tiny adjustment made a world difference." I'm like, "Sweet, cool." Yeah.
So in the training, do you do anything, throw other elements in there to like kind of help throw them off or to create more chaos in the situations that you're doing?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. In my pistol too. I mean, it's pistol two. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's pistol two. A couple times. It gets hot. I mean, it
Mhm.
doesn't get Arizona hot, but it gets hot. We were
Mhm.
training in like 90, 92-ish degree weather. It was hot,
Right.
right? So San Diego, that's hot, right?
Right.
And we're outside all day. And so these guys were getting like pretty smoked,
Mhm.
right? Just by the end of the day. And I was like, "Hey guys, just hang in there. We're doing it." So I didn't let them know, but I had this ice cold water and I filled up a squirt gun. And so they're out there. I'm like, "All right, beep." And all of a sudden they're getting squirt with ice cold water and they're doing this. They're just like, "Oh, what the?" And then they turn around. I'm like, "Why are you not shooting? Why are you not shooting?" And as I'm squirting with water.
Yeah.
So the first guy was the surprise. And then everyone after that kind of had a little bit more expected reaction.
Right.
Like they're just kind of waiting for it. And then they kind of flinch. And then because ice cold water hitting you on a hot day, you flinch
Yeah.
anyways. Just your
Right.
body moves.
Mhm.
But so yeah, I try and incorporate stuff like that, and like I try, like I said, I try and do the distraction method where I engage
Uh-huh.
with them in conversation. I'll be like,
Right.
"Hey man, those are really nice shoes," and then and they're like, "Oh."
Right.
So yeah, especially it's funny because when I have people in my classes that I know,
Uh-huh.
either they've taken multiple classes or I know them personally. I start asking them personal questions like, "Hey man, what city does your mom live in again?" Stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
when do you have to take your mom to the doctors? What
Right.
days? And then they actually cognitively start pulling information to feed
Right.
me, and then the timer goes off, or then I'll yell gun, and
Mhm.
so then everything changes. So that's fun for me to see because
Right.
obviously I'm the controller of it,
Yeah.
but it's fun to see the cognitive process
Mhm.
engage and like drop this information, pick up this information, and go.
Right.
You know.
So there's a company here in Arizona called Arizona Tactical Adventures,
Hmm.
that I used to train with, and they have this thing. It's a little machine that simulates gunfire, and it's
Mm.
fucking loud,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Someone just
right?
tell me about one of those. Yeah.
And so like they put you in a scenario. You're in a store and you're being engaged with somebody,
Uh-huh.
and then all of a sudden this thing will start going off, and like you have an, or at least I did. I had an immediate response of like ducking,
Hmm.
you know,
Yep.
and it was really noticeable,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that because it's completely involuntary.
Yeah.
When you hear those loud sounds, and I've watched other people like completely kind of break down. It's like they're just not used to that,
Yeah.
being in any kind of environment like that.
Yeah, I did
So,
that in a CQB class. I have one of those like big Bluetooth speakers, like the Costco ones, the big
mhm,
ones, and I put it at the back of a building like this. I put it. I mean, it was a warehouse, so you could still hear and everything. And I put it in
mhm,
the back, and I was controlling it with my phone. And I had found online gunshot sounds, a woman screaming,
mhm,
and I edited it so it was gunshots. The woman screams, and the gunshots end like right on
mhm,
top of each other, right? Um, and so I had these guys running through the building doing CQB, and I had them doing deliberate, so nice and slow, smooth, steady. And I go, just be aware of what's going on, okay?
mhm,
And so I play it, no change in reaction. Hmm. Play it again, no change in reaction. And I asked them when they get done, I go, "Do you guys hear anything?" And they're like, "Yeah, we just heard some noise in the back." I was like, "Really interesting."
uh-huh,
And so they're all standing close to the speaker now, and I play it, and it's boom, 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 scream, and then nothing. And I was like, "So what does this sound now that you've heard it? You're concentrating on that sound. What
mhm,
does that mean?" And they're like, "Obviously, some chick just got shot,
right,
you know?" And I'm like, "Yeah. You think that might have changed your deliberate to maybe a more dynamic situation?"
right,
And they're like, "Whoa." They're like, "We were so focused on what we were doing and so focused on just being safe and deliberate." And I was like, "Yeah, but that chick just got smoked." Like,
right,
you need to change your pace a little bit there.
yeah,
Now there's an active shooter in the building. You know that the shooter's probably this way. You can use your auditory senses to go
Hmm.
that way,
Right.
and they were just like blown away. They were like, we had not a single one of them, and all of them were like, yeah, yeah, we heard some stuff,
Right.
but not a single one of them sucked out of the concentration of what they're doing to be like, what is that over there?
Yeah.
You know?
So what is the term for that? It's is it auditory exclusion?
Hmm.
Yeah. So you kind of like getting so narrowed in that you
Yeah,
don't really
it's
hear
tunnel
it.
vision. Like
Yeah.
boil down, you say it to anything. They when someone's so focused on something, it's tunnel vision. They lose auditory senses. They lose the peripheral senses.
Hmm.
And it happens. It happens a lot. Like I remember in the academy, we did this one scenario. It was a live actor scenario, and the academy was sitting over here, and the scenario was happening over there. You couldn't see it, but we heard
Hmm.
gunshots, so we
Hmm.
knew going into it, like, okay, this is in a scenario with gunshots, right?
Hmm.
We know there's going to be a gunfight somewhere is going to ensue. And so you walk up, I had a partner, me and him, and you walk up on this old man walking with a cane. And so my preconceived notion is there's going to be gunshots. So
Hmm.
we get all in a postured stance and we're like, let me see your cane. Let me pat you down and let me do this. Let me do that. And so, because
Right.
we had this preconceived notion of gunshots, right?
Hmm.
And then I think my team, and this is not to brag, but I think my team was the only one to catch this on the radio. They say, oh, there's a bank robbery in progress 2 doors down. That's where the gunshots come from.
Right.
But everyone was like, because the first group probably was just kind of like, oh, we're here, we're new. But everyone after that was like, gunshots, gunshots, gunshots. So they're like drawing on this old man, right? And he's
Right.
just walking with a cane. And even we got sucked into a little bit. Like my partner is like looking at his cane to see if it comes into a gun, and he's like
Right.
patting him down. And I happen to hear the radio. I'm like, yo, we gotta go. Like, give him back his cane, let's go. And
Right.
so we came out, and the guy comes out of the bank robbery building, and he has a gun, and I just was like, boom, and I was like, got him. And he looked at me, and he's like, I was like, right. So same thing. They even gave us that warning on the radio,
Hmm.
but people were so hyper focused on what they thought was going to happen
Hmm.
that they were surprised by something happening, even
Right.
though we got a warning. And then the guy comes out, and he's like, every time he
Yeah.
shot the guys.
Right.
But it's just that same thing. You just get so hyper focused on
Hmm.
this thing that you exclude other things. And the trip of the radio was happening for everybody. It's not like we were special. They told us.
Right.
Everybody got told.
Yeah.
But I just happened to be standing there because I was just thinking, like, there's no way this old man has a gun. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way. Like, I'm like my partner's investigating his cane. I'm like, come on, dude. Like
Yeah.
a gun cane, like it might be possible,
It's
yes.
possible.
But in reality, like this ain't the scenario we're living in right now.
Right.
So I was just kind of like, and that was like pushing me out of the scenario a little bit and
Uh-huh.
pushing me out and be like, no, this can't be it. This can't
Mhm.
be right.
Right.
And so then I actually heard the radio and I was like, oh, yo, yo.
Right.
So yeah, it's a prime
Yeah.
example. And that ever since then I learned, like, don't get so sucked into what you got that
Hmm.
you're not watching everything
Right.
else.
So then that kind of plays into like people that are active, law enforcement now. It's
Hmm.
like they don't get that little bit of heads up
Yep.
about this is kind of what to expect, or this is,
Yep.
it's not a scenario. This is everyday life. They've
Yep.
just got to like be able to like adjust to those things
Hmm.
as they're going along.
Exactly.
So of course they're going to make mistakes,
Yep.
you know, and then everybody is like all willing to like stand and like, point in
Yeah.
every little thing that they've done wrong. It's like, you don't understand how much information you're trying to take in all at once,
Yeah.
and still shoot the right guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's assuming that you have to shoot at all.
Yeah.
Is there's another way to avoid that than by all means. But I mean, if it comes right down to it, you do the job that you're paid to do,
Right.
which is protect the public.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so it's just that's a lot cognitively just to process
Hmm.
and actually deal with.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah. And it's always one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, sometimes cops do bad stuff.
yeah,
Sometimes cops makes mistakes, and
right,
name a job where that doesn't happen.
right,
Like, unfortunately, when a cop makes a mistake, it's a much higher stakes
yes,
in the game.
hmm,
But like I said, name a job. We're human. We're
hmm,
inherently human.
hmm,
Every job, someone has made a mistake somewhere.
right,
You know, I made a mistake one time when I worked at a chemical plant. I filled that the size of this room with water on accidentally, and I had to drain it. And guess what? I got in trouble. My stakes of doing that weren't that high
right,
because I screwed up. Yes, but a cop makes a mistake, even if they're a good cop and they did made a mistake, they're
hmm,
still scrutinized and they're still bastardized and they're still
right,
fired or let go and the community outcry. But
hmm,
there are some cops that are bad at their jobs too.
yeah,
There are some employees that are bad at their jobs too in
Right.
just the general sector. So it sucks that cops have so much scrutiny and so much um I don't want to say liability. They do have liability, but it's
Right.
just so much eyeballs on them that yeah, if they mess up, it's just everyone hates them
Hmm.
immediately,
Right.
and it sucks because they're humans and they're put to this scrutiny and this pressure every single day
Hmm.
to do a job that no one wants to do except for
Hmm.
these people. You know,
Right.
so it's hard to they always say like don't judge a man until you walked a mile in his shoes. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, you go be for a cop for a day and see how it works,
Right.
you know? And they're like, oh, defund the police, defund the police. I'm like, why don't we want to give them more training,
Hmm.
which costs more money?
Hmm.
So it should be fund the police, right? It should
Right.
be like, hey, let's pay for more training so they don't make these mistakes or they're educated out of making these mistakes. Where
Hmm.
it's like, no, 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 let's just take away all their money so they're just loose cannons out there, not knowing what they're doing.
Hmm.
Could you imagine if they're like, all right, well, we cut funding to the police, so the police academy is only gonna be half as long. I'd be nervous about those guys on the
Yeah.
streets,
Right.
I'd be like, "Oh, cow. I don't know about these dudes. I don't know if they're making good decisions."
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all about perspective.
Hmm.
Defund the police is probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. It's among some of the worst ideas ever.
Yeah, yeah.
So think about this for a minute. Like, have you ever watched any like old movies, like from the 40s, 50s,
Mhm.
and see the interactions that people have with each other?
Yeah, yeah.
We talked about a little bit about this, like the guy running into the doorway
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the 70s, 80s,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. So like people were just different and more. I don't know if disciplined is the right word, but there was definitely a distinct difference between the way they reacted then to the way they react now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In the 40s and the 50s, like if you saw like a police officer talking to people, they stood up straight and they paid attention. They
Yep.
were they were
Yep.
talking. They weren't being disrespectful. They weren't just saying fuck off. They weren't
Yeah.
pulling guns.
Yeah, yeah.
There's just like there was a way that the general population responded
Mhm.
to law
The level
enforcement.
of respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And over the years, that has drastically decreased,
Mhm.
right? So, and because of any number of factors, people just now are more disrespectful. They're more willing to push and do things. I think I sent you a video of like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
young
That
kid
that kid
mouthing
mouthing
off
off.
to the
Yep.
cop,
100%.
right? Talking all just mad shit,
Yeah.
about what the cop's gonna do and tell him to take off his vest because he wants to fight and this and that.
Yeah.
And it's like all up until he got fucking slammed on the ground and then he's, oh, I'm a minor,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like please don't hurt me.
And which is stupid because even if that guy wasn't a cop,
Right.
he was an adult that towered over this kid.
Yeah.
Like he was gonna crush him. Like
Right.
you, if that cop was like, "All right, I'm taking my vest," that kid would have got crushed.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why he had the balls to just start mouthing off in the first place. And then
Because
especially it's a cop.
Yeah, because he's laboring under the delusion that because he's being filmed or because he's
Yeah,
in front of his friends that, he's not gonna get
yeah,
hurt,
yeah.
you know, that nobody's ever gonna there are no consequences for any of his actions.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he's at,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Um, so again, kind of like if you think about the way that things were and how they've progressively gotten worse, right? Law enforcement is having to deal with much more with
Yeah.
fewer resources, and now you're adding on the whole concept of let's defund the police.
Yeah.
It's like, how is that helping?
It's not.
You know,
Yeah.
you're doing the exact opposite. What you should be doing is figuring out how to fucking fix society first,
Exactly.
so that they don't have as much to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
the same thing with the gun argument with guns. It's like in the 30s, 40s, 50s, people had guns, the same kind of guns we have now,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The guns haven't changed,
Yep.
types of
Yep.
guns, whatever. But I mean, the fact that people had guns didn't change.
Yeah.
You didn't have fucking people walking into schools and shooting them up then.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have all of the same stuff that
Yeah.
all the same level of violence that we have now.
Yeah. It's a societal decline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they insist that it's the guns. It's like, no, you're blaming the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That's like saying that because they have newer vehicles that the amount of traffic violations or the injuries or drunk drivers has
Yeah.
like gone up because of the cars. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's gone up because of the humans that are making the mistakes or
Yeah.
making the decisions
Yep.
you
Yep.
know
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, to blame the gun is the stupidest possible idea. Like
Hmm.
if these people are committing heinous crimes and are evil people,
Right.
hands down. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So if that person, maybe they shot 10 people, well, maybe they were going to go in the other day with a knife and stab five.
Right.
That person is making a deliberate action to do that evil thing.
Hmm.
So if they had a gun, a knife, a spoon, a car, a bat, a hammer, they're still going to do an evil thing.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the weapon or the use of a tool.
Hmm.
It's just a simple thing that they chose to do carry out that evil.
Right.
We don't it's just so dumb to say like, well, the medieval knights killed a lot of bad guys. Well, let's outlaw swords. It's like, no, the medieval knights were paid to go kill bad guys. That's
Right.
their job. They were the
Yeah.
army, they were the military, right? But there was never like, oh, let's outlaw swords. Like I get it if you do, a function and you're like, oh, let's just no guns at the door. Cool, get it. Just
Hmm.
want to have gun free zone or whatever it is, like airports and schools and stuff. I get that.
Hmm.
Cool. I get it. I understand. But to just be like, no, citizens can't own guns. That's a stretch, man. That's a
Right.
stretch. So
Hmm.
it's stupid to think that, oh, because that person bought a gun,
Hmm.
they committed a bad thing.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the gun. They just chose that instrument, but they were still going to do it anyways.
Right.
They're still going to have an evil intent in their heart and a still evil desire and do a bad thing.
Hmm.
So it's not like, oh, I got this gun. Now I must kill people. That's not
Right.
how it works.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, a different way to look at that is like, let's say somebody that commits suicide with a gun, you
Hmm.
know? And so for anybody to stand up and say, well, if there were no guns, he wouldn't have died. It's like, no, you don't understand.
That's bullshit.
You don't understand whatever level that person had to get to want to commit suicide, right?
Exactly.
And understand that that was going to happen regardless.
Hmm.
If somebody's
Hmm.
determined to kill themselves, they are going to find a way regardless,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
You know, and that's why in prison, when the inmates are suicidal, we put them on a watch to make sure that they don't kill
Right.
themselves,
Exactly.
you know?
And they will find any means necessary
Yeah,
because they've already made a decision to do this thing
yeah,
and they're going to find the way to do it
right,
because they chose a gun or because they chose the car or because they chose a rope, a bed sheet, or whatever.
yeah,
They're still going to make that decision,
hmm,
and we have to watch the person to make them not make that decision. Not,
right,
I don't go, okay, cool. I'm going to take away everything in your room. You're going to stand there naked and then I'm just going to leave.
right,
They're still going to find a way.
right,
They're still going to bash their head against the wall until they're
right,
dead.
yeah,
So you have to watch the person. You can leave them in a room full of things. And if I'm standing there watching you as a person, I'm like, all
hmm,
right, you're not going to do it. I'm
right,
going to stop you from doing that.
hmm,
It's the person making those decisions, not the gun, not the rope, not the
right.
knife, whatever.
And this isn't even like particular to just firearms. This is like
Oh yeah,
anything across the board, right?
absolutely.
The amount of violence and the amount of like crime that we have right now is directly tied to the breakdown of our society.
Hmm.
Has nothing to do with the tools or how they manage it.
Right.
It's that things have changed, and we need to figure out a way to like change that back.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things we've got to stop in this fucking country is stop telling our kids, A, this is not a great country,
Hmm.
okay? And B, that they have no consequences, that there's no repercussions for anything that they do. There absolutely are.
Yeah.
And again, we get back to this whole group of people who are so disassociated from reality that they think that they can just do whatever they want, or
Yep.
and that somehow that's just going to be okay.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
No, eventually they're going to run face first into reality, and it's not going to go well.
Well, and what's crazy is that happens at a political level too.
Hmm.
Like when you have district attorneys that won't prosecute certain crimes, or you have jails that are overfilled, or you have these higher up decision making processes that trickle down so that the bad people on the streets learn I can do this and get away with it.
Right.
The district attorney has said they will not prosecute this. That means I can do that.
Hmm.
And they learn these things. There's plenty of stories in San Diego of cops that they show up to Target calls, hey, this person's stealing a bunch of stuff. And the person will steal a ton of stuff, will put it in their car, sit on the curb, wait for the cops to come. The cops come and they just write him a ticket that says promise to appear. And then they drive away with all the stuff. Well, what's the cop going to do about it?
Right.
The district attorney's not going to prosecute.
Uh-huh.
You can't book him in the jail because the jail will be like, nope, not heavy enough. We can't put him in. And he's just like, my hands are tied.
Mhm.
What can I do? Right. And so the cop's trying to do his job, and he's like, hey, I'm here to do something about this, but
Right.
here we go. You
Hmm.
know. So the criminals they will learn like I can get away with so much, whereas back in the day, you shoplift. I mean, look at I don't remember what country it is like when you shoplift, they take a finger. You know,
Okay.
how many people you see walking around with all 10 fingers? Probably a lot because
A
I like
lot.
my
Yeah.
fingers. you
Right.
know. So
Yeah.
it's the same concept.
Hmm.
So I mean, not to say that I'm for capital punishment. We should take people's fingers, but it's like they understand the consequence of their actions,
Right.
right? And it's just that mental understanding
Hmm.
of now people just don't give a shit and they'll just do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, which sucks because that's what breaks down society. Because then they teach their kids that, and then their kids take it two steps further, and then their
Hmm.
kids two steps further. Three generations, you're so far down the line that it's unrecoverable.
Well, that's where we are now.
Yeah,
The people that are growing up in the world now are being taught something that in when I was a kid was unthinkable, like
yeah, yeah.
absolutely unimaginable.
Yep.
And
Well, I mean,
it's that's in one
just
fucking generation.
look at kids now that like you can't stay out till the streetlights come on.
Yeah.
You know, that my mom would be like, "Get on your bike and leave." Like, I don't want to see
Yeah.
you until the streetlights come on.
Hmm.
You know, or even we'd be in the street, but there'd be 15 of us in the street riding bikes and having a big
Hmm.
thing. Where it's now, it's like, kids are isolated and they can't be out there, and
Right.
kids are getting kidnapped on the way home from school, walking. Or I saw in San Diego just a couple days ago. It was like a school bus tried to get hijacked. They tried to hijack a whole school bus.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, dude, this is nuts.
Right.
So nuts. But yeah.
Yeah. So I hate to see where the country is going. Really worry about our upcoming election.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
You
getting
know,
spicy, that's for sure.
the fact that you could take somebody who was one of the most disliked people and by far probably the most uh, disliked vice president in all of history and turn that person into, the person that we should be running our
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
in,
Like overnight.
yeah,
Yeah.
in a matter of months. It's
Yeah.
like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
lied to the population to an extent that is unimaginable,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, even with this election coming up, it's like, oh man, like how do you even judge what like Kamala? One of the things she did was she was the deciding vote on the waitress tax or whatever, the
Hmm.
tipping tax.
Hmm.
And then she pulls out Donald's playbook and says, "No, we're not going to do that." I'm like, you just made the decision to do that.
Right.
How could you all of a sudden turn? So if that is how flippant you'll make a decision just
Hmm.
because it's what they want to hear, like how
Yeah.
many other decisions on other policies and issues
Right.
will you be so flippant just to flip because you're like trying to find a
Yeah.
solution?
Hmm.
It's like we see where you lie, we see where you said things, and then now you're saying the opposite. And it's like that was like months difference, right?
Right.
And so it's like, wow, that's the kind of person you are. It's just like, oh, he said that? Yeah, let's do that.
Hmm.
They're like, yeah, but you made the decision months ago when it didn't matter politically
Hmm.
to make that decision and you voted against it.
Right.
So it's kind of a trip to see that like straight up just and now she's saying like, oh yeah, we'll help with the border wall. I'm like, what? Like
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Every
crazy.
major thing that she has worked against, now all of a sudden she's in favor of,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So what concerns me most isn't Kamala, because she would be an absolute catastrophe for this country, right?
Hmm.
But like I said, the idea that the mainstream media has so much power that they can convince people
Hmm.
to accept somebody that is an awful fucking human being and terrible and that by no means is qualified to do the job that that person is.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And can shift the narrative so extremely that people would actually vote for this person who realistically shouldn't have any chance at all.
Well, I mean, to be honest, you or I could run for president if we had CNN behind us.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even matter. CNN can say whatever they want. And if you and I just keep our mouth shut and let
Mhm.
CNN run with it, we could run for president.
But
And we
that's
and the American public was like, they're perfect for the job. And be like,
right.
man, I can't balance a checkbook. Like
Right.
I'm gonna run this country, but if CNN says I can, then I can.
So that idea terrifies me
Yeah,
that we've gotten
absolutely.
to that level of whatever
It is
propaganda,
it is no longer the right person for the job. It's
Yeah.
like the lesser of two evils.
Hmm.
You know, you're like, well, Donald's not great, but he did an okay job. Well, Kamala's going to do a terrible job, so I'll still vote for Donald. Where it used to be like, wow, well, that guy owns several businesses. He's an outstanding citizen. He, has donated this much to charity, that, and then, but this guy, all the same things apply. They just have different fundamental ideas, but they're still like outstanding citizens within
Hmm.
their people.
Right.
And that was the original politics. Those were the original politicians. They were not, oh, I'm going to grow up and be a politician. They were like, no, I'm going to grow up and have a family, a business, be successful, be a smart dude, get my shit squared away, and then
Hmm.
maybe I'll help my community.
Right.
That's how politicians were meant to be chosen
Right.
from the community, help the community, and make decisions for the community.
Hmm.
Now it's like, no, I'm just going to grow up and be a politician. Like
Right.
that should not be anyone's like admirable job to go for, you know?
Well, not only that, but there's no way that you should become a politician to become wealthy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
shouldn't even be a fucking
Yeah.
option.
I mean, the amount of insider training in politics is insane.
Yeah.
Insane. It's just it's ridiculous.
Hmm.
And insider trading or just like, you know, how they become so wealthy by being politicians, you
Yeah.
know, agents of the people. Like how did I don't understand how that even happened. I mean, I understand how it happens, but it's just insane. Like I said, it should that's not should be
Hmm.
politics should almost be like a volunteer position.
Hmm.
You know, it should be like, well, I've already established my career. I'm already wealthy. Let me come to the meeting on Thursday and we'll figure out what's wrong with this
Right.
country. You know, it should be something like that. Whereas,
Yeah.
you know, look at Pelosi. I mean, she's just filthy rich off politics.
Right.
Filthy rich off
Mhm.
politics. It's crazy.
I read a book a long, long time ago, and they talked about the idea that people that got elected to whatever position, right?
Hmm.
When that happened, they stripped them of 100% of their assets. Like all of their money, everything went away.
Hmm.
So now you were basically a homeless poor
Yeah.
person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like the only way that you succeed is if population succeeds,
Yep.
right? If everybody profits, then at the end you also profit,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And because of that's the system that they had, most people spent a vast majority of their time trying not to get elected because they
Yeah.
didn't want to
Yeah.
be stripped of
Yeah.
everything. They didn't
Yeah.
want that responsibility.
Yep.
I think that would be a far better system for us to have,
Yeah.
where the only way that you could prosper is if the entire population is prosperous.
Yep.
Of course, that's never going to happen,
Right.
but
Right. Yeah.
but it's a it's something that we should be striving for at least.
Yeah.
Maybe not ever get to that level, but at least try, at least
Yeah.
make that some part of the equation,
Yeah.
that you can't solely benefit and become super wealthy at the expense of everybody else,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know?
Yep, just further dividing the classes
Yeah,
in that situation where it's like, why are you making the decisions for me?
right.
Why are you, a filthy rich person,
Hmm.
making decisions for me who's trying to make it by with a privately owned company, my own company, and barely making money to, you know, cover month to month checks and
Yeah,
bills? Like, why are you making that decision? You don't live my life,
uh
you know? So it's one of those things where like politicians just
right.
they do what they want.
Well, then on that note, then you have things like the World Health Organization. These
Hmm.
are wealthy people that have just decided that it's that that somehow they know better than the rest of the fucking world,
Yeah.
and that they're just going to make up rules and that everybody is supposed to abide by. It's like,
Yeah.
who elected you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody,
Yeah.
you
You
know?
just established yourself because you had a bunch of money to do so.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
nobody elected you. You don't have any say in anything. You certainly shouldn't be trying to make up rules for the entire world,
Yeah. Yeah.
based on what you think is correct. It's like,
Yep. Yep.
no, fuck you.
Yeah. I mean, if every country had a health organization that you could confer information with and be like, well, you know, this organization says this, organization says this, let's find a compromise between them. Then I'm like, okay, well, I see that you're making like a clear cut decision, but that the World Health Organization just makes up their own data and just goes, that's what the data is.
Right.
I'm like, well, is it though?
And then if you follow the money, you'll understand that most of those decisions aren't even because it's what's best, it's what's best for them.
Yep. Yep.
It's what makes them even more wealthy and keeps them even further in power,
Yep.
because then they can look down on all the poor people and say, well, you obviously don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So we'll take care of it.
Yeah. We
You
got
know?
it from here. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, no, that's the wrong answer.
I agree. I
Mhm.
agree. But and then, you know, it's hard because as as the people we are in the nation we live in, it's hard to be like it sucks because you get upset with politics and you're like, but realistically, that's the situation we live in. That's the world we live in. And you and I both agree, sit here and agree. Like we would love to change the political climate of the country, but you and I in this room are not going to make that decision. It has to be everybody making that decision.
Mhm.
And most people in the U.S. and to my belief are just happy just living their lives.
Right.
They don't want to change. They're just like whatever. I just do what I do, and I don't have time or money or
Hmm.
care to think about that kind of stuff and try and change it. They're just like whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
And I know people that are like that. They're
Yeah.
like, if it doesn't affect me directly,
And I
It's not a
okay.
big deal,
I have no
you
opinion.
know,
Yeah.
because the idea is it's not affecting me directly, or it's not affecting me directly enough.
Yeah.
Because like we'll use the whole inflation idea. It's like that affects everybody whether they want to admit it or not.
Right.
Okay, if you're paying more for your groceries and your gas and the insurance and
Mhm.
whatever else, it's like you are being affected. You
Yeah.
know, you can say you don't care, but the fucking pocketbook tells you different.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, but the other, I've talked to people that will say, well, I don't have the ability to change anything, so why bother? I'm just not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't affect that
Right.
change, so I'm just, you
And
know,
the problem is when everybody has that mentality,
right.
nothing gets changed.
Exactly.
But if everyone has the mentality of like I can make a difference, how do I make a difference?
Yeah.
And then you join together,
Yeah.
then you can actually make a difference.
Yeah.
And then we
Actually,
are we the people,
right.
and then it actually works.
Right.
So we vote out things we don't want and we vote for things we do want
Yeah.
as a group, as a people.
Hmm.
But it's the same thing with guns in California, like a lot of the gun owners are just like, whatever, the laws are just going to change. It's like, well, yeah, but they don't have to. If we all band together and had as much organization and power as the anti-gun people,
Hmm.
we could make differences too. But you just don't give a shit and you just sit in your garage and play with your guns, not caring about how to take care of those rights.
Right.
And they just go, whatever, I'll move out of here before I give up my guns. Well, that doesn't help either, man.
Right.
Like, okay, cool. So we're just gonna let California sink to all our brethren, in the
Hmm.
industry. It's like, well, cool, good for you. I
Yeah.
don't want to say you quit, but you kind of quit,
Right.
you know?
So even that thought process, well, I'm just going to move someplace else, or I'm going to move out of the country. I've talked
Yep.
to people that do that too.
Yep.
It's like, nope, I've got all my shit ready and I'm going to go live in another country. It's like, okay, how long before that country becomes this one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because obviously this one wasn't like this originally either.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
it's like at some point you can't keep running away. You have to fucking turn around and fight. It's just
Yep.
all there is to it.
Absolutely.
And if you stood up and fought to begin with, you wouldn't have to run away.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know,
And California is like the prime example of that. California is probably their biggest export is people.
yeah,
Like people are moving out of California like crazy. And the problem with that is they're going to states like Arizona. They're
hmm
going to states that now that Colorado, now that California political view starts to influence that state and it starts to turn it back into California,
right,
where Arizona is a little purplish these days. It used to
hmm
be blood red.
hmm
Same thing with Colorado. Colorado's blue now, I would say, because
oh
Denver
yeah.
controls that state and everyone outside the cities.
What's all the bullshit going on in Colorado? You have like armed people like taking over apartment buildings and
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah. Armed Venezuelan gangs just
Yeah,
owning the apartment complex. Squatters who are not paying rent. Just
right,
this is us. We own this now. Kicking people out.
right.
Yeah,
So this goes back to the argument. It's like, why do you need a 30 round magazine?
yeah,
Well, this is why,
yeah.
you know,
Yep.
because
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
shit happens,
Yeah.
and it's so easy for people that are never in those environments to say, oh, that doesn't happen,
Well,
you
and
know?
especially for a politician to say, "Oh, it doesn't happen." Yeah, it will never happen to you.
Right.
You're right,
Yeah.
because you live in armed communities, gated communities, in huge houses.
Right.
You're right. It will never happen to you.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen to these people over here in this apartment building.
Because obviously it is.
Right.
It is happening.
Exactly. It did
And
happen.
where's the law enforcement stopping this?
Yeah.
Oh, they were
Well,
defunded. That's right.
yeah. Yeah.
Because that was a good idea.
Because, and especially in Denver, they're very progressive, and they don't, okay, cool. Just
Hmm.
kind of let that happen.
Yeah.
Oh, well, geez.
So I really question that term progressive. It's like, what are you progressing towards?
Decline.
Yeah. You know, the end of our society.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not progressive.
No,
That's
no, no. Yeah.
I don't
I
even
mean,
know what to call that.
I think it's a term they coined themselves
Well, of
to
course.
to try and sound like, oh, we're the moving forward, we're the momentum,
Uh-huh.
but it's like realistically, if you look at it, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So there's another, I don't know what to call it. This idea that like somebody would walk, they're walking through like an empty field and they find a fence, right?
Hmm.
And they look around and they decide, well, I don't understand why this fence is here. We're just going to take it down. It's like, that shouldn't be your first thought. Your
Yeah.
first thought should be, why is this fence here?
Yeah.
You know, there had to have been a reason for it to be there in the first place. It
Right.
didn't just come out of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the idea that you're going to dismantle something without any knowledge about what its actual use
Why it's
is,
there. Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
Hmm.
But I think that's the progressive thought process. It's like, well, we don't think it needs to be there, so we're just going to get rid of it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I mean, it's wild. Like, It's crazy, man.
Mhm,
It's yeah, the like I said, California is a great example. The mass exodus of people from California,
mhm,
and it's just proving that if you start tanking something, it's just gonna ruin itself. It's gonna when people leave, you're gonna leave the people in charge that want to destroy it, and they're gonna destroy it.
yeah,
Simple as that.
and then you have people that are essentially prisoners, like, where they live,
Mhm.
you know?
Because, I mean, you look at, like, Joe Rogan, who left California saying
Mhm,
that place is a shithole, Gavin Newsom's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Well, cool, you had a $100 million contract from Spotify. You could move and buy a ranch in Texas.
mhm,
Good for you. We can't,
right,
Like, there's a lot of us that can't.
mhm,
Yeah, I mean, myself included. Moving is expensive. Moving out of state has complications. Like,
mhm,
there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like, well, I mean, I get it, but kind of you gave up on California.
mhm,
You quit California, and I
right,
mean, more power to him. He made the right decision for him and his family.
mhm,
Cool, but for all, like you said, for us that can't do that, we're trapped, and it's
yeah,
just, you know, we get to live the decline,
yeah,
write it out, I guess. See what
yeah,
happens.
and just the major blue cities that are dealing with this, I really worry about how they're gonna end up,
hmm
you know,
hmm
because it can't be good in the direction that they're going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you look at some of the most progressive cities in the US, they're the worst.
Mhm,
You look at San Francisco, it's the shithole.
yeah,
Shithole.
San Francisco, it just from everything that I've seen in the last probably 10 plus years, that just looks like hell.
Mhm.
I mean, it has become a
Mhm.
fucking nightmare. It's like, why would anybody go there?
Yeah. Do you remember I don't know if you remember this during COVID when the gangs ruled city blocks in
Yeah,
San Francisco? Like, what the hell, man?
right?
That was like straight up Mad Max style. Like you had a gang warlord who ruled several city blocks
Mhm,
of San Francisco, or was
yeah,
that Seattle? I can't remember. But I mean, both of them are shitholes, anyways.
right.
So, but still, it's just like, what the hell?
Mhm,
Like that's just straight Mad Max end of the world stuff,
mhm,
and no one was doing anything about it.
yeah. So the thing that I'll say to all the people that are just living their lives and going to Starbucks and doing whatever they're doing during the day, it's like you need to understand that there is a consequence. Just because it's not right in your face doesn't mean it isn't going to be there eventually.
And to even get on that, just get involved. Choose something you care about and get
Yeah,
involved. I don't care if it's the opposition of me. Just get involved.
right.
Don't just give up on life. Get involved. If there's something you care about, I care about firearms. It's my
Hmm.
likelihood. It's what I like to do. It's how I make a living.
Hmm.
I enjoy it. So I'm involved with several different organizations that fight for my rights to do that.
Right.
And that's how you maintain what you want is you get
Hmm.
involved and you try and sustain that.
Yeah.
Especially with something like firearms where people are actively trying to take them from me, you know.
Right.
So that's where it's even more important to get involved. And, like I said, here in Arizona, I mean that ship is coming. You
Hmm.
guys border us and
Yeah.
we're getting a lot of transplants and Arizona is slowly but surely changing, just like Colorado did.
So the one thing I will say about Arizona, in the last like couple of years, especially, like the politics is definitely shifting. Like the actual people in office,
Hmm.
there's more and more of uh, people waking up, I guess,
Yeah.
and understanding there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of things that are going on,
Yeah.
and like the our attorney general has been put on blast.
Yep.
Our mayor, or not our mayor, but the governor has been put on blast for doing
Yeah.
things that they're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
They're no longer just in the shadows doing what they're doing. It's
Right.
like they're being called out,
Right. Which
you
is
know,
awesome. Yeah.
and there's a lot of shifting that is moving much more towards the conservative side.
Yeah.
So I think that we're in less danger than we were 5 years ago.
Yeah. 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 5 years ago, it was like, oh, I see this going downhill.
Hmm.
But, and unfortunately, that's kind of what Colorado did.
Hmm.
If you, I mean, even if you look at a lot of the major states in the union, like New York, California, Colorado, the majority control is in the city,
Hmm.
right? So, but the second you get outside the city, the people don't think that way.
Right.
You have upstate New York that's like people living in the backcountry woods. You have
Oh
Colorado
yeah.
outside the city, people are living in the backcountry woods. Same thing with California. You go into the center of California and it's all farmland.
Hmm.
So you have those people that still want that freedom, but you have the city that is controlled, and that's what controls the politics and that's what controls the state. And
Right.
that's unfortunate because, you know, that's how it works in our
That's
society.
that's not how it's supposed to work though.
Correct. It's not how it's supposed to, but it is actually works,
Yeah.
That's why they always say, like, in theory, communism is great. And I believe that too. Like, if I could be like, hey, that rich actor that just made $50 billion making a movie, I get my cut of it, cool. But in
Yeah.
reality, that ain't gonna work, man.
Right.
It's a stupid concept.
Yeah.
I would love for all the money just in food to be split equally. Of
Hmm.
course, that would be great.
Right.
But it ain't gonna work. Everybody knows it ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that's not a real society.
Hmm.
That's not how it works.
Right.
But in theory, like, sure, he got a raise, so I get a raise, and everybody gets a raise. Yeah, great.
Right.
Society's great,
Yeah.
utopia,
Uh-huh.
but that's not how it works. We
Yeah.
all know that's not how it works.
And honestly, if it worked in any other country in any other
Or once at all ever.
ever,
Yeah.
then I'd have a whole different opinion about it. But the
Yeah.
fact is, it doesn't.
It's a theory.
You
It's a
know,
theory. Like, yeah,
and
it
it's
does
a
not
faulty
work.
theory
Yeah,
because
oh, 100%.
because what you're taking out of that equation is human nature.
Exactly. I was just
You
gonna say
know,
that. You're human.
yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you put that back into the equation, you end up exactly where you are right
Yep.
now. It's like,
Yep.
you know,
You end up with corrupt people doing it, and just it does not work.
yeah. And I
In
know,
theory, it's
yeah.
like let's think of the best way to save the world, but we don't have to have rules. Oh, everybody gets their slice.
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool.
Sure. Who
It's
gets to
great.
determine that?
Yeah, exactly. But who says my slice is bigger than his slice?
Right.
When we cut this pizza, come he got a skinny slice and I got a big slice, or vice versa.
Right.
So
Well,
yeah.
why does your has more toppings on it than his
Yeah,
does?
exactly. Like,
You
well,
know?
his has 4 pepperoni and mine only has 3.
Yeah.
Dude, I just cut the pizza, man. Like, chill out. So,
Right.
but yeah, so in theory, like if we could just distribute the wealth, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be awesome, dude. Like
Yeah.
there are actors that are, sitting on crazy amounts of money. I mean, not even just actors, but there are people in the US that are just sitting,
Oh yeah.
Russian oligarchs sitting on crazy amounts of money.
Hmm.
Like, dude, kick me down like 5% and I'll be good for life,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
But it's just not how it works. It's
Yeah.
not how the world works. It's not
Uh-huh.
how I mean, and I get it. Those people worked hard for their money and they did their job. Cool. It's your money. I get that too.
Yeah.
But,
Then we come back to Michelle and Oprah telling us that you should be against the rich people. It's like, what?
yeah. Yeah.
And I don't see you handing out,
Yeah.
anything to
Yeah.
anybody.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. So,
you want to share the wealth, let's start with you.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Cut me a check. I'm going to
Yeah.
write you a letter with my address and be like,
Yeah.
feel free to send me money,
Yeah.
you know? But
So,
yeah, it's just not how it works.
all right. Take a deep breath. Because I think we could just keep going down that rabbit hole for a while.
Oh yeah, for real.
But I got to say, it's fucking awesome talking to you again.
Awesome.
It
Glad
has
to be
been a
back.
while.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just really good to see you. I know that
Likewise.
you got other stuff going on. I want to be respectful of your time.
No,
So,
no, yeah, you're good. You're good, man.
um, but yeah, it was great to talk to you. This was a fantastic conversation,
Yeah, definitely. It
and
always is.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be back.
All right, then.
All right.
Well, on that note, I will say goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, you can now support the Non-Victim Nation by donating via listener support directly on Spotify. Remember, the story of your life is being written right now, and you are the hero.